Blog Talk Radio.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to MetaVisionaries Global Live Radio. I'm your host this evening, Debbie Edwards. We have a really great guest tonight. We're going to be talking about healing with hypnotherapy with clinical hypnotherapist Steve G. Jones. Now, before we get started, I want to remind everyone you can participate in our interview tonight by calling in on the call line to either ask questions or to just listen in. Our call-in number is 646-716-6198, and also, of course, you're welcome to join us via the chat room. We're open to taking questions there as well. So it just takes a couple moments to establish a Blog Talk Radio account if you'd like to participate that way. Otherwise, you can just kind of hang out with us as a guest. So we're going to be live for an hour tonight, and I want to give you a little bit of information here about Steve. Of course, you're welcome to check out all of the information we have here in our bio there of the show. He has also appeared on Fox News, CNN, CBS, among many others, and of course has an amazing catalog of education and different things that he offers. So in his words, I'd like to describe a little bit about what he has to say. He says, imagine living the life you deserve to live, a life in which you have unlimited wealth, focus, and confidence. You see endless, exciting possibilities, and you feel so good about it. Steve has focused his life on developing a powerful line of hypnosis products to launch you powerfully in the direction of ultimate success. These products include his top-selling weight loss hypnosis CDs and MP3s. New opportunities await you, so start your journey now. So with that said, I'd like to introduce Steve to our show. Steve, welcome.
Hi, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm really glad to have you on and be able to talk about the work that you do, because I know right now, a lot of people really have questions about hypnosis and the aspects of healing and, really what it's about, and a lot of people have questions. So I'm really glad to be able to go ahead and talk about this today and, see what got you started in this and how it's been going for you.
Okay, well, I can, do you want me to start in that right now?
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great.
Okay. Well, I got started in hypnotherapy long ago. I was always the kid who was kind of shy in high school, and even going back into grade school, I was kind of reserved and so forth. And when I was in high school, I stumbled upon a book that was by Leslie LeCron, and it was The Complete Guide to Hypnosis, I think it was called. And I started reading it. And in there I found the tools for empowerment that I hadn't been finding in my everyday life. So I started practicing self-hypnosis on myself and realizing that a lot of these things that I thought were barriers, me being shy, not doing things, were really all in my head. And I started clearing those out. And even when I was in high school, I was a kid when I found this book. Even in high school, over 20 years ago, kids started coming to me and saying, hey, can you hypnotize me? So the smart kids started coming to me wanting to study more efficiently. The athletes started coming to me, wanting to, get more out of their practice. So over 20 years later, it's still the same thing, except now the smart kids are NASA and the athletes are the Dodgers. But aside from that, it's the same thing that a curious kid was doing in high school. So I'm glad to have taken a passion that I discovered in myself early on, and to have not only helped myself, but to have helped so many others with it.
Yeah, well, what a great way to do that, too, because, when we look at different aspects of healing modalities and therapies, different things that, we do as professionals, and to be able to help others, but really kind of looking at the journey of how, it's something that also helped us in return. And I was curious as far as some of the most profound, I don't want to say people, but some of the most profound experiences you've had. I'm curious of what are some of your success stories with the hypnotherapy that you've been using to help others heal.
Well, the most profound, I would say, are the ones who lose weight or stop smoking, because we can see that so clearly. It's just something that if somebody loses 100 pounds, for example, you can see that. And if someone stops smoking, well, you can see the fact that they're no longer smoking cigarettes, and usually get a thank you note because you've kind of saved a life, actually. So those, in general, would be the most profound. But I do have some specifics. I remember working with, when I had my office in Beverly Hills, working with Tom Mankiewicz, the writer of Superman the movie, and he had smoked for 45 years. Every day of his life, he had never gone in that 45 years. He was about 65 when he came to me.
Wow.
But for those 45 years, he'd never gone 24 hours without a cigarette. And after leaving my office, he never smoked again. And so that really stands out in my mind as a pivotal moment, because it was great for for me to help someone who is so well known, and also just an opportunity to really show the power of hypnosis.
Yeah, well, and it really is truly amazing what our bodies will respond to when the mind becomes open and, I don't want to say interested, but when the mind is open to the power of suggestion in a therapeutic way, and really how it just has the true power and ability to change so many things, that especially when you're looking at addiction. And that's what I wanted to ask you, too, because, of course, I guess smoking would fall under that category. Do you traditionally work with people that struggle with addiction? And if you do, I'm curious about, the steps there and the results there.
Well, I would say that it is addiction of one type or another when I work with people. It's and sometimes they're addicted to something obvious, such as smoking or overeating. I usually kind of shy away from the word addiction because I don't want to give it too much power. I just say that's what they're doing right now. So I do have clients who are in many cases, I say usually, yes, they're stuck on something that's presenting a challenge for them. And so the method is very straightforward. First of all, I work with them for one session on confidence, just building their confidence in themselves. And then we move into dealing with the challenge directly. And then I like to have a cleanup session where anything that I missed we take care of, because sometimes when I work with a smoker, for example, there's something that I just didn't address. There's some specific trigger that's causing smoking, which everything else may be removed, but by the third session, that one thing is still there, so we focus on that. So typically I like to have 3 sessions. With some things such as weight loss, I have more than that, because I want to work with someone until they achieve their target weight if they want to continue working with me that long.
Sure, absolutely. Well, and I'm curious, too, because especially when you talk about, working to help them build their confidence, I think that's such a great aspect to be able to hit that front and center, because, of course, with your experience, I mean, looking at the people that come in and that are insecure about overcoming a lot of these obstacles they've put in their path, the percentage of people that you work with, do you find that when they do come into your office that, they've tried all these different methods that have worked? Is it something that you're encountering?
Can you repeat or rephrase that, please?
Sure. I mean, as far as people when they come into your office, is it something that you find that they've tried all these different methods, I guess I misspoke, that have worked or that have not worked, rather, something to where they're really... Is hypnosis a first step for them, or do you find that this is something that they feel is alternative that they're turning to?
No, it's the last step. Hypnosis comes after leeches and after the voodoo doll. That's when they try hypnosis. They've tried everything else first.
And that's what I meant to say, so I apologize if I misspoke.
That's okay. No, first they try a book. They get a book and they try it, and by the time they get to me, it hasn't worked. But in many cases, that may work for people, and I never see them. Then they try another program, then another program, and then they for weight loss they try starving themselves or all kinds of things. They literally try everything that they consider to be within reason. Many of the people who come to see me or turn to hypnotherapy literally have tried everything else, and hypnotherapy is something that they would not even consider unless everything else had failed them. Unfortunately, the way reality is, in my opinion, is hypnotherapy is one of the most powerful ways to cause a change, because you go right to the root of the problem. But because of just the alternativeness that you alluded to of hypnotherapy, people tend to steer away from it or not use it. They don't want to. For example, when I work with people in Tokyo, Japan, they'll come into the office the back way. They don't want to be seen. It's considered somewhat dishonorable to do that. So this is definitely alternative, and in many cases it's the last resort. But there's a big alternative community now in the world. So for a lot of people it's their first choice, but for many it's their last.
Sure. Sure. Well, and that's why I asked, too, because it's something that, a lot of people are really curious about it. I think it's just taking that step to be able to approach it, because there's so many, I would say, mysterious questions, mysteries surrounding hypnotherapy, because when we look back the last 30, 40 years of media, looking at the way hypnotherapy or hypnosis in general has been portrayed. I mean, we're looking at, remembering talk shows and things like that where you've got people up there and they're being hypnotized and they're doing things they don't remember and that kind of thing. I think not that it's necessarily been misrepresented, but I think it's something that hasn't really had enough exposure to all of the healing aspects to it, and not just the aspects of, surrendering the conscious mind.
Right. There's a big draw in Hollywood to portray hypnosis as something where you take control of someone's mind and make them do things. Like if we look at Woody Allen's movie, Curse of the Jade Scorpion, in that movie, people get called up on the phone and told a magical word that activates their subconscious mind to do things like rob a bank or rob their neighbor's house or something like that. And sometimes that's all people see of hypnosis. So they either think it's not real or that it's used to make people do things against their will. And first of all, it is real. Second of all, we won't do anything against our will in hypnosis that we wouldn't do anything that we wouldn't ordinarily do in full waking conscious. So the ideas that are put out there mostly by Hollywood, and I understand the need for entertainment because I like movies too, and I like hypnosis movies too. But because of that, we kind of start behind the starting line in some cases. We're starting a few feet back, and when we run the race of convincing people that it actually works.
Yeah, well, and that makes complete sense, and it's something I'm curious, too. What are some of the methods in which you use when you're working with somebody, say even someone that, they're really ready to make this transformation, this breakthrough for themselves? And, of course, I know you were saying in your first session you like to talk about self-esteem and self-confidence. What are some of the methods that you use to help people go through these steps in which they can become empowered to overcome a lot of these things?
Well, I use some fairly standard hypnotherapeutic techniques. For example, my sessions are made up of 5 parts. I have the induction, where I'm inducing hypnosis. I'm getting them into hypnosis, which is just a talk about walking along the beach or walking in the woods, something that's relaxing for them. Then I have the deepening, which is intensifying that state. So if I had them walking along the beach for the induction, for example, I would just count from 10 to 1 as the sun sets. So that's the deepening. Now we have them in hypnosis. So at that point, I introduce their subconscious mind to the script, because if you think of it like surgery, the induction and deepening would be kind of like cutting into the patient, and the script is sort of like doing a transplant, let's say a heart transplant or something. We're changing their thoughts, we're changing their beliefs. So we do the script, which is a very straightforward series of statements about change. And then amnesia, which is causing the patient to forget what has been said during the session. The reason is that if we are left to our own devices on that without amnesia, we will analyze everything. I'm telling them they're going to lose weight or stop smoking. When they come out of hypnosis, they may say, wait a minute, you said I'm going to lose weight, but that's not true. You said I'm going to stop smoking? No way. So amnesia scrambles that access to the subconscious memory that I've put in there during the quote-unquote surgery. And then the transtermination, which is if they're in my office, it means counting to 3 and bringing them back up. If they're listening to a recording, then it means telling them they'll go to sleep and wake up in the morning, because the recordings are designed to be listened to at night.
Sure. Now, let me ask you this, too, and that actually makes me a little bit curious about a different topic, along the same lines of as they're listening to these CDs, because I did want to ask you about the CDs that you have available. Say that you have a client or an individual who is listening to these as they fall asleep. Do you find, have they communicated with you about their dream time? Do their dreams change? Do they become different, more vivid, vibrant, or does this alter the dream state as well?
Well, I do have a number of recordings. I have about 20 different recordings for dreams, lucid dreaming mostly. But even the regular ones, that when I say regular, I mean things that aren't about dreaming, which with 4,000 different recordings, I've got a lot of things that aren't about dreaming. A lot of patients do report to me or to my office staff that they have more enhanced dreams, and that happens for me too. I don't know why that is, but because I'm not saying anything in the non-dream ones about enhanced dreaming. I think what it is as you're going to sleep, you're listening to all this imagery. Sometimes I have you walk on a beach, or sometimes in the woods. There are a bunch of different introductions that we call inductions, as I said, where we're inducing hypnosis. So I think it kind of primes the pump, so your brain starts running with it, and even after the imagery is over, you produce dreams as you sleep. That's my theory anyway.
Okay. Well, yeah, it's just something that was real curious for me because, when we look at different techniques, whether it's hypnosis or meditation or, things that people use as even a relaxation tool is that we find that the dream state, because of, the subconscious mind, the dream state becomes sometimes much more vivid because like you're acknowledging there with the visualization and the visuals, it's kind of like you're going right into that dream state. And so it's just something real curious there that I was wondering if, people did experience.
People do say that sometimes. Sometimes they say they have the craziest dreams when they listen to hypnosis recordings. So,
yeah.
The mechanics of it, I'm not certain of, but I do know from experience that does happen.
Okay. Well, tell us a little bit about the CDs that you offer, the different types of CDs, and then, of course, where people can access those or purchase those from you.
Okay. Well, we're producing all the time. I've been doing that for years, so we have, at this point, over 4,000 different recordings available. And what happens is, over the years, people say, do you have a recording on nail biting? And we write back, no, we don't, but next week we will. And we produce it, because I have a full recording studio now that I had built, and I have 2 full-time college graduate sound engineers who work for me, just producing everything we can to help people. So the website is stevegjones.com, just my name, stevegjones.com. And to find anything, just type it in the upper right-hand corner in the search tool. We also have classes. We have hypnosis certification classes, NLP classes. We certify in all 3 levels of NLP and 2 different levels of hypnosis with 3 different specialties. So you can sign up for all those trainings, plus the 4,000 different recordings, all of which can be downloaded to a computer and put on an iPod.
Okay. Well, that's really exciting. I mean, the fact that you have so much available for people. What are some of the abstract requests that you'll get as far as things that people want to work with on hypnosis?
Let's see. 12-strand DNA activation was one of the most abstract ones. And I have it's kind of funny, I have an office in New York, and they're actually in Brooklyn. And the people who staff that office are in Brooklyn. And I've gotten I don't do a very good Brooklyn accent, but I'll try. What the heck is 12-strand DNA activation? I've gotten that question because some of these things that we produce are based on metaphysical theory rather than physical theory. So by the time we send it up there for distribution, they're looking at it and saying, what in the world is this? But these things are actually very powerful and very helpful. And 12-strand DNA activation is actually based on the theory that we have the double helix that we know of in our DNA, our physical DNA. But there are other helices, and helices is the plural of helix for our listeners, and these other helices are of a metaphysical nature. So we have some that correspond to different aspects of our personality. So we have 12 strands altogether, 6 helices, and together they make up who we really are as a metaphysical creature and a physical creature combined. So when we first got the request for that years ago, I was a little knowledgeable about 12-strand DNA activation, but not that much. So I had to spend about a year getting really up to speed on it and finding out how I could help people with this, because it's not good enough for me to know it. I also have to know how to integrate it into hypnotherapy. So That, in my opinion, is the most, probably the most unusual one as far as the mainstream is concerned, but it's also at the same time one of the most powerful ones.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about that too, that you mentioned that is of course, as you mentioned metaphysics, being somewhat of a root. When we're looking at these types of aspects of hypnosis, it's something that I've frequently come across people that talk about the aspect of our DNA and looking at. There are people that are trying to work on even reprogramming everything in the fact of being able to alter our own DNA strands to either enhance abilities, whether it be psychic aptitude or if it has to do with, physical illnesses and things like that, but working at a core level of this type of energy. I'm curious, too, is what experiences there or what, I guess, results have you had as far as have you had any feedback on these CDs for people that are using it for that purpose?
Oh, we've had a lot of positive feedback because when people do get something such as 12-strand DNA activation, for example, or lucid dreaming recordings or astral projection, and by the way, I just completed the largest astral projection program in the world, which is being sold through Mind Valley, which is a huge company that promotes who's the Chicken Soup for the Soul guy, Jack Canfield.
Okay.
So we just completed that. So it's the most I think it's 20 hours of information just on astral projection. So anytime we produce something like this and put it out there, we always get feedback, and it's almost always positive. And with the 12-strand DNA activation, what we've heard, since it is so all-encompassing, we've heard about changes on so many different levels. Physical, mental, spiritual, and so forth, emotional, and just a lot of really, really wonderful feedback, mostly about blockages that have existed for a long time at one level or on multiple levels that were just unblocked because of this. Sure.
Well, I'm curious about this, too, because in relation to hypnosis, we hear about past life regression, and for me, I've kind of always seen the two as interlinked because when you're talking about the steps, going down from 10 to 1, you're getting into that really deep state. Are you finding that, say, some of the people you're working with are spontaneously going into a regression? Does that happen in your office?
Sometimes. The last big hypnotherapy session I did on camera anyway was for Danny Bonaducci, and we did I actually did a regression on him, a past life regression. And that was a lot of fun. But in general, sometimes people do. Sometimes there's something that I'm not picking up on in the office, and they go into a spontaneous regression because their subconscious mind has something to tell me, wants to get something across, so they go there on their own into a spontaneous regression. So they start giving me information about that. Usually that doesn't happen, though, because we're talking about something such as stopping smoking or losing weight, and it's very straightforward. A lot of my clients, even though they are of the alternative mindset, they're not necessarily convinced that there are past lives, for example, or that all of their memories since childhood are intact. So they don't necessarily have that as a belief they're holding in their minds, and so even when I put them under hypnosis, they still kind of maintain that mainstream approach, even subconsciously, so I don't find the spontaneous regressions in most cases.
Okay. Well, that's actually an interesting thing to note because when, and I've talked to several people that have, discussed things that have happened to them spontaneously and things like that. So it is quite interesting to be able to discuss that topic because, there have been people that I've spoken to that have experienced something spontaneously in that fact, and then there's been people that have not. I know myself personally, I actually experienced something spontaneously as a past life regression recall when I was 15 using just a meditation tape, and of course it was not the objective. I was 15. So it's always been something curious for me if others have actually, experienced that, if that's something that they've been open to with or without, prior belief or prior knowledge to that.
Sometimes it just doesn't matter if they have prior knowledge to it, and if you were that young and doing that, then I would use that as a case in point. When I was luckily I was exposed to hypnotherapy early on, so I remember at 16 I was training people to do past life regressions on myself, so I was actually probing for that specifically so that I could find out who I was in a past life and so forth. But it isn't necessary to know it or believe in it in order to go into it. I guess that's more of a theoretical standpoint of mine, that if they're so set on the meat and potatoes kind of life, that this is all we've got and there's no past life and so forth, then typically their subconscious mind, even in a regression, will hold on to that. But I do believe, in using yours as a case in point, as I said, that there is the possibility of going into that, even in the absence of believing it or knowing about it.
Sure. Well, and that's why I was curious about that too, because I know, of course, at the age of 15, I mean, it wasn't anything that I would have even considered at that particular point in time. But being, I guess, the nature of my sensitivities and what I do, I mean, it makes sense to me looking back on it. But it's something curious that I've often wondered, people that do use hypnotherapy as a tool, what percentage of people that they work with that have these profound experiences. And that actually leads to my next question also, too. Let's say somebody that's working to overcome a fear. Do you work with people that are looking to overcome fear, or is it something that, it's mainly staying with, say, weight loss or stop smoking or things like that?
Oh, I do fear also. I did a pilot for A&E about a year ago, and they bought tarantulas, and they had people come in to have tarantulas on their hands, and initially the scene starts out with the tarantula being shown to the person, and they yell, even men yell, and then at the end of the pilot, where everyone's getting along with the tarantulas. So. I do work with overcoming fear. Usually it's not that, Hollywood-ish, but sure, when people have fear of an elevator and they have to work in a building with elevators and every day they're dreading going to work, that's debilitating, and it makes sense to help them overcome that. Whereas they wouldn't encounter a tarantula in their everyday life, they are encountering an elevator. So many times in the cases in which it's a part of their life and they're afraid of it, yes, I do work with overcoming fears.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's something I was curious about too, because, looking at fear-based things, and I guess this leads to my next question, kind of capping off on and I don't want to say too much on it, but the past life thing is that, when you're working with fears, is it something that, you're seeing obscure things also that people are afraid of that they really have no basis in this lifetime to be afraid of? Is it you're finding unusual fears at all that people are trying to overcome too? Oh,
absolutely. One of my good friends and clients, Sandra Ray, she's the founder of the rebirthing movement. She and Leonard Orr started that. And she had a fear of men, and she didn't know why, because it didn't make any sense to her. And when I took her to a past life regression, she had been, I won't go into details, let's just say she was abused in a cave, not in cave people times, we didn't go that far back, but she was taken to a cave in reasonably modern times and abused, and as a group of men. Once she overcame that, she was able to then have a relationship, and she, as I understand it, I got an email from her the other day, and she's doing fine in that regard, relationship-wise. So it's... in many cases, it's something that, they think that it might be something else, but they really have no clue what it would be, especially something like that. Nobody expects that, to find, abuse of that nature in a cave, in a past life. It's not something you would normally think of, but they do know something's up. Something's not quite right. Another example is the lady who was she wasn't... and this is something I heard from somebody else. I think Dick Sutphin told this story. He's a past life guy who I have learned a lot from. He's talking about a lady who was not able to go to the fish market without just losing her mind. And as it turns out, she was, let me think of the story, it's something along the lines of she was abused by someone who was wearing a certain cologne that was made from fish oil, I believe it was.
Oh, wow.
In a past life, yeah. So sometimes
Okay.
you get things like that. A very common one is for people to be afraid of wearing turtleneck sweaters, and turns out they were hung from a tree in a past life during a witch hunt or something like that. So we find all kinds of things that people would probably never come up with on their own, just guessing, and then it turns out that I've got a whole bunch of those that I've discovered. I could talk for days on that. It's yes, that's a fascinating topic, and it does happen quite often.
Yeah, well, it's awesome to talk about because too, when we see where people are finally able to recognize where that fear comes from or where that phobia, whatever it is that they just, they react. It's like a triggered response, but in this lifetime it has no root or basis for it. But what are your findings when, and I know for me, but what are your findings when they finally come to terms with what is happening, and like you were giving by example with the first gal you were speaking about, but do you find that they are able to just completely release it, heal from it, let it go? Is it something that lingers, or are they able to disconnect from it?
My experience is that it's immediately resolved. It's almost like magic. Once they see it, it's kind of like they say, "Oh, okay, that's ridiculous for me to hold on to that fear because that's something that happened in a past life, and it's not really even exactly related to this," and then they just let it go. So my experience is that they're immediately freed from it.
Okay. Well, I think that that's wonderful, too. And of course, for all of the listeners that are listening in today, I think it's something most certainly if they're curious about being able to resolve any fears or things that they feel need to be moved forward from, things that they need to be able to kind of put closure to. I think hypnotherapy is most definitely a tool that they can use to receive that healing that they need.
I agree 100%.
Yeah. Let me ask you this too, okay? And here's another scenario as well is, are you experiencing where, say you have somebody coming in and, they're acknowledging things about relationships, say the way in which they relate to their partner. Do you find that you're working with people that are dealing with emotional substance as far as resentments or things that they're trying to work through with partnerships?
Sometimes I do. It's interesting that the majority of my clients have some sort of relationship challenge going on. Maybe that's just the nature of the world today. I don't know. But usually there's... is that what you're asking, if most people...
Yeah, I'm just curious as far as when they approach you, if relationship is part of the reason that they're coming, or if it's something that you're finding as an underlying component to them wanting to heal from the things that they're coming in for.
I've seen both. I haven't really tracked that one, but I've seen both, and if I had to guess, I'd say it's 50-50 as far as cause and effect, which comes first.
Mm-hmm.
But I do see a lot of times that they'll discover something that they weren't aware of. For example, a reason that the relationship isn't working based on something that has nothing to do with the relationship, or something that's not working in their lives that is directly attributable to their relationship. And when we look at relationship, it's interesting. That's a whole other topic we could talk about forever, but relationships tend to recycle. You find someone who in 1 year is in this abusive relationship, and the next year they're in an abusive relationship, but it's another person. Or they're with their soulmate 1 year, and then the next year they're with their soulmate, but that's a different person that they're calling their soulmate. So we find that people tend to reproduce relationships, and they subconsciously seek out people who they are sort of pre-programmed to seek out. So just a little side note about observations that I've made on relationships.
Yeah, well, it really is interesting, too, and I guess, it kind of brings up a curious thing, and I guess here's a rhetorical or hypothetical question, is that seeing that people are recycling these particular aspects of relationship, whether behavioral, emotional, that kind of cycles forth this expectation or, what they choose to attach to, do you feel that it's something that they are almost self-hypnotizing as a pre-program experience for themselves? Is this something that, they feel that, that this is what that they need in their lives, or do you find that this is self-induced in a hypnotic way?
I find that all three of those are true. Yes, absolutely, we do. And by the way, hypnotherapists look at everything as hypnotherapy. So I believe that everything boils down to hypnosis. So they do program themselves. They do live out what they think they should find, and they do follow what their subconscious mind is telling them to do. And so hypnotherapy comes in and says, hey, why don't you just change that? Why don't you reset the radar a little bit, and let's aim for a different target this time. And so the beauty of hypnotherapy is the ability it has to go to the subconscious mind and change it from the ground up, rather than just making a suggestion in waking consciousness. We can make a suggestion to the subconscious mind and have it actually work.
Sure. Well, and I think that it's really important for people, too, to be able to recognize the cycles that they're recreating in their lives. And I like what you're saying there. As far as looking at things of being able to help people change their pattern of behavior, of course, looking down into the root level of being able to do that. And, of course, is the work that you do, seeing the immediate results, are just amazing in such few sessions to be able to have such immediate results with people.
I agree. And, taking myself out of the equation, just looking at hypnotherapy in general, it's when it works, and it doesn't always work, but when it does work, it is, in my opinion, one of the most immediate ways to get results. I've seen other modalities that are rapid also, or immediate, such as NLP, but hypnotherapy, when it works, is just strikingly powerful to see it in action, to see somebody 1 week, smoking, for example, the next week they would never touch a cigarette. It's just something that when it works, it's just so wonderful and amazing. And it appeals to me personally because I don't have much patience, and I don't want to wait around for things to happen. So I just kind of assume, I guess, that everyone's like that. And so that's why I really get into hypnotherapy. I say to the world, essentially, by practicing hypnotherapy, if you're like me and you don't want to wait 10 years for a change, then let's handle this right now, because if it's going to happen, it's going to happen quickly. So I really love that about hypnotherapy.
Sure. Well, I think that's amazing. And let me ask you this, too. This just popped into my mind. Thinking of the law of attraction, the power of manifestation. We hear a lot of people that talk about law of attraction, what you intentionally put forth that you want to receive. Taking a look at that principle and then taking a look at hypnotherapy, how different are they really? Because aren't we just projecting from the subconscious and conscious mind what we choose and what we really want for ourselves in life? Do you see those as a comparison, or do you see those as something that are similar?
I see them as very similar, and I recently completed writing the book, You Can Attract It, with my co-author Frank Mangano, and we got a foreword from John Asseroff, who was in The Secret, and in that book, I taught, and it's available at all bookstores, by the way, as a little plug there, but in the book, You Can Attract It, that's what I do. I take hypnotherapy and I combine it with law of attraction, and I say that, yes, you can attract it, and I can show you how to do it, but how about I'll show you how to program yourself to really believe in that, because that's what I see as the difference, or the great separator between those who are successful using the law of attraction and those who aren't, and that is the belief that it's actually going to work. Because we tell people, wake up and put on a happy face, and you'll attract good things. Well, some people just don't believe that's going to happen because they've been down in the dumps so long. So in the book, my focus was on showing people how they can program themselves with hypnotherapy to bypass that, to bypass the I don't want to believe it or I don't believe it part, and to just get right to believing. And once they believe, they find out that this actually works. You put out stuff to the universe, and that's what you get back.
Well, I like that. I like that because it's something that, I think self-doubt, insecurity, hesitation, fear, all of these factors, all of these components, it's like it's pre-sabotage, It's like completely self-sabotaging when people put forth the effort, but it's a conflict within themselves to actually stand by it as, yes, this is real, yes, this is something that's going to work for them. And I like that you address that, because I think really that is something that puts people to believe that, okay, this is great to hope for this, but yeah, this isn't going to happen. I got to see it to believe it, kind of a thing.
Right. It bypasses all that speculative doubt.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's really important, too, for people to have something that they can see the results with also, and to be able to look, especially like you're talking about with the weight loss or quitting smoking, looking at the success of it. And when people really say, yes, I know this will work, when they really know it within themselves, I mean, the immediate results, just to be able to see where someone who has spent every day for 45 years smoking and then just didn't after. I mean, that's a tremendous breakthrough.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, it's something that when we're looking at different types of success, I think it's just something that, hopefully as people become more and more curious about, these types of aspects of healing, that it's something that they try out. And, we're just starting to see more and more people open up to hypnotherapy as a healing tool, which is really great. And, just broadcasts like this, being able to help inform people about the methods and what it's used for and things like that, I think it kind of helps to satisfy that curiosity, so people are more driven to try it out.
I agree. I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah. So, well, we only have just a few minutes remaining in the broadcast, and before we go ahead and go off live, I do want to go ahead and remind everybody your websites and, of course, how they can get in touch with you and, things that you have coming up here in the future that we can look forward to.
Okay. The website is stevegjones.com, and that's your kind of your portal to all my various products and projects. Things I have coming up, I believe I'm doing a training in Cancun. I was invited to do that, but I don't have a definite date on that. And I've got some other things going on in, I believe, Italy and Greece, but I'll put that on the website as they develop, because these are recent developments. Recently, I've been so busy with TV things, and then and the book tour. And then we developed a 3 levels of NLP training, which is fully available online. So now that I'm surfacing from all of that, I'm getting back into world touring mode. So as those things develop, they'll be available on stevegjones.com, and all of the 4,000 downloads are available there too.
Okay. Oh, well, that's wonderful. Well, I'm really glad, that people have the opportunity to explore that. Now, what are some of you were talking about film and things like that, what are some of the film projects that you've had and where people can explore that as well?
Well, if you go to the website, you can see a lot of the recent things that I've done. If you go to the website, stevegjones.com, there's a link at the top which talks about that. I'm actually going there myself right now. It's the media link at the very top, and there you can click through a lot of the various things that I've done on True TV and Fox. We've got tabs all the way across the top: Fox, CBS, NBC, and so forth. A lot of what I've been doing on TV recently has of the 20 or so videos on there have been related to the book tour, but we've got a lot of other things on there. Also, the pilot I did for A&E recently about the power of hypnotherapy to relieve phobias, as we were talking about earlier. And then I did another pilot with Danny Bonaducci about past life regression. So these things are the way pilots work for those not involved in entertainment, is that pilot is created, and then the networks look at it, and they decide if they want to go with it. If they do, then you see a series show up on TV. So that's where those are right now in the pilot phase. So hypnotherapy is gaining momentum. Otherwise, they wouldn't be calling me, asking me to do these pilots. So I'm glad to see that.
Sure.
We've made that much progress. We're
sure.
seeing people have a demand to see how it works.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and even as I'm looking at the website now, and I noticed that the Akashic Records is something that you work with as well. I was curious if you could tell us a little bit about that, too.
Oh, sure. Akashic Records, that's a great I just love the Akashic Records. I was first exposed to the Akashic Records when I was about 15 years old, and I read a book by a Tibetan monk named Dr. Tuesday Lobsang Rampa, and the book was called You Forever, and he was talking about the Akashic Records. The Akashic Records are our access to everything that's ever happened and ever will happen. So if everything that ever will happen is infinite, and everything that ever has happened, I imagine, is also. So you've got access to everything. So think of the Akashic Records as the ultimate internet connection. When you tap into the Akashic Records, they're actually a library, and you can look. It's sort of like a browsing library when you go into the Akashic Records, and you can pick up a volume of anything. They are fairly guarded, so you're not going to be, taking volumes with you. It's not a lending library. It's a browsing reference library that you can go into. But understand that this exists in a metaphysical state. So I use astral projection as a vehicle to get people to the Akashic Records, and I use hypnotherapy as a catalyst for the astral projection. Obviously, as I talk about this, that you realize that, listeners realize that these things are of a metaphysical nature, so not everyone resonates with these concepts. But once you do go through the program and access the Akashic Records, what we find is that we make believers out of people rather quickly because they see that they have access to all sorts of things. I mean, knowing what's going to happen tomorrow and then it actually happening is kind of interesting, and it's a little difficult to refute. So when people get into the Akashic Records, they find out all sorts of fascinating information, and of course with information comes the idea of using it wisely. So I'd caution people to use the information wisely.
Sure, absolutely. Well, and like with anything like that too, because it's something that when we look at it this way, of what is the potential of them taking it a little bit farther than what it actually is, or what is the potential of them, using what they've discovered through there, and I don't want to say altered their path, in a way that may not necessarily be productive. I'm curious about that too. Have you received any feedback from people about what they've experienced when they've tapped into the Akashic Records? And I'm just curious about their experiences of what they've received.
We've received a lot of information. By the way, I should point out that the portal to that online is through the website stevegjones.com, and that's in the left-hand navigation. That's where you're finding that. And I just wanted to point that out to the listeners. But the feedback, first of all, this product, this group of recordings, I don't like to look at things as products really, because I like to look at them as things that help people. So
sure.
This group of recordings was one of our most popular groups of recordings ever. We had no idea how popular Akashic Records were going to be. I've been into them since I was a kid, a teenager. I didn't realize just how many other people wanted this knowledge. And when you look on the Internet, there's not much about Akashic Records. So this is a complete program for it. But we've gotten a lot of feedback. People saying that they were able to find stuff from the past. They were able to get information about the future. People are a little hesitant for whatever reason to look at the future. And when I do past life regressions, I always tell people, you're getting on a train and you can go into the past or into the future. People almost always choose the past because they're just focused on it. I'm not sure why that is, but the Akashic Records also offer access to the future. So the emails that I've seen where people write in about the future have been just fascinating, just things people say are going to happen, and then they talk about things that they found out would happen next week, and then next week came around and it happened, or they knew something was going to happen, so they chose a different path. And that gets us into a whole theoretical conversation, as you sort of mentioned earlier, about how much effect should you have on the future. But I haven't heard anything major yet where things are happening that shouldn't be happening. But what I have heard is people getting tremendous insight about where their path might be leading them and how they can improve their lives and avoid things that might happen negatively.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's something too is when we're looking at that, what is their usage? What is their purpose of what they use it for, and the direction that they're going. But what a great program that is to be able to offer that to. And like you're saying, it is true. There really is not enough out there on the net when it comes to this aspect, when it does come to these records, because, we hear a lot of people talk about it, but okay, let's go a little bit deeper, what's there. So what a great thing that you've put out there. And also, too, I've noticed that you have ACD to boost the immune system. Talk to us a little bit about that. That's something really interesting.
Well, the theoretical basis on which that stands is that you can affect physiologically everything in your body. We have documentation from the American Medical Association going back to the 50s about hypnosis being helpful in controlling blood flow in cuts, actually causing blood to come out of a part of the body that wasn't cut and causing blood flow to be minimized in a part that had received some damage, and dentists being used in dentistry also to minimize bleeding after dental surgery. So if we start from that premise that you are able to physiologically control your body if you are able to control your mind, then we find that we're able to do a lot of different things. One of the things that we're able to easily do is to make sure that our bodies are in proper alignment to ward off certain things, because when we have when a disease may or may not affect us, or when a sickness may or may not affect us, it gets down in a lot of cases to our immune system. How intact is it? How able are we to fight it off? And if everything's working properly, then we're okay. But if we're stressed and we're not eating right, we're not resting right, then we find that the immune system drops. So a lot of it is just programming you to take care of yourself. But the other part is getting into your subconscious mind and saying, okay, subconscious mind, you're in charge of blood flow, you're in charge of this and that. Let's do things the right way. Let's do things the best way. Let's not, even in times of stress, slack off at all. Let's keep things up, not just up to par, but above par, so that the immune system is extremely powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and what a great way to do that, too, because, when we look at, and of course we hear, mind over matter, but, when we really look at the intent behind people that really have the intention of healing and wanting to be healthy, it really does have such an immense effect on the physiology of the body.
Absolutely. We can make ourselves sick if we want to, and we can make ourselves healthy. And people who, the doctor says you got 1 month to live, and then they live a long, long life. Medical science doesn't have explanations for this. When we look at the subconscious mind, we find the clear answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, how wonderful, too. Now, let me ask you this as well. You also offer classes, too. I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about your classes and the things that you offer there.
Sure. Again, at stevegjones.com, in the top horizontal navigation, there's a tab that says Classes, and when you mouse over that, you'll get Hypnosis and NLP. The NLP classes are new for us. We just produced all 3 levels of NLP training, which is practitioner, master practitioner, and trainer, and we are the only program in the world that I know of that is completely online. Some of the other ones say they're online, but you get DVDs mailed to you. That's not online. Ours is viewable completely online thanks to flash programming, and it's an ebook that gets emailed. So this is the first training of its kind that is done completely in the comfort of your own home or wherever you want to be. So keep in mind that I feel, with my doctorate in education, having gotten a bachelor's degree, master's degree, specialist degree, and doctorate, I feel that education happens best in the classroom, one-on-one training. And as an educator, that's what I'll always believe. However, I'm also open to the idea of what a lot of the Ivy League schools are doing, even Harvard, offering online programs. So we're incorporating what I know to be a knowledge base that people should have with modern-day needs. And one of the modern-day needs is to not have to fly somewhere, not have to pay for a hotel, not have to sit in a classroom, not have to take time away from the family and work, and to have it deliverable to the home. So we put together a program that's very comprehensive, yet can be done in the privacy of one's own home, and we have hypnotherapy the same way. And the way I get eyes on my students to make sure they're doing the right thing is I have them send recordings and send videos to me so I can see them in action, and then I make corrections and adjustments as needed.
Sure, absolutely. Well, and how wonderful, too, to be able to do that, to be able to receive the one-on-one and to be able to really focus in an environment that they're comfortable. I think that that's really something important, especially when we're looking at schedules and we have so many obligations today.
Absolutely. It's the modern day way of doing things. People want things right now, and they want it online if possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and what a great thing to offer, too. And I guess to just cap off on this as well, I'm also looking through, and you offer hypnotherapy for dental as well. I was curious about that.
Well, dentists love hypnotherapy. Medical doctors, maybe not so much. Dentists love hypnotherapy because they've been using it since the 1800s. They've been using it for a long time. And the reason they've been using it is because they've got people who come in and freak out in the chair. It's
right.
Like lawyers have a certain reputation, so do dentists. It's just, it's not right, but it's the way it is. People talk about dentists and they say, oh, no, the dentist. And so dentists are always looking for a way to put people at ease. So they use hypnotherapy. They've been using it for over 100 years. You're talking to the patient, relaxing them, putting them actually into a hypnotic trance. So it was just a natural marriage, if you will, between hypnotherapy and dentistry that worked out. So I put it into CD format and MP3 format so people can download it. Let's say you have a procedure coming up next week. You can download to your computer and then put on your iPod, if you want, my recording for Overcome Fear of Dental Procedures. And I also have...
what a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it's just, somebody's just losing their mind thinking about going to the dentist, and then they have the calmness they want without having to use drugs. And that's, I think, a tremendous advantage. Not to say that it's taking the place of the painkiller in the moment, but it's taking the place of whatever drugs they might use to calm themselves down that are probably not necessary if they could just do it themselves. So that's what I'm offering.
Sure. Well, and what a great tool, too, because when we see a lot of people that neglect the health of their teeth or the health of their body because of fear, because of something that they feel that they're dreading. Of course, this can make a tremendous difference. And I was also curious, too, thinking about people that are afraid to fly but need to fly. If they're, on business trips, if they're doing things like that, is there a CD or is there a session that you can offer when it comes to the fear of flying?
I have 25 different fear of flying recordings available on the website. And if you go to the upper right-hand corner and type in flying or fear of flying, you'll see them, and you get access to them. They were developed by me when I didn't fly for a year after 9/11. 9/11 happened, and for a year I stayed grounded because I was afraid to fly. And I thought, this is absolutely ridiculous. I've got to get over this. And so I started working with myself hypnotically to overcome it. Then I thought, well, I need to get this out to the world because there's no way that I'm the only one who's afraid to fly. So
sure.
I started putting it out, and people responded, and they, that's a top hit too, because now people have the freedom to go see their loved ones and to do their job, and for me to do seminars. So I get to affect a lot of lives because of my overcoming fear of flying.
Sure, absolutely. Well, and what a tremendous difference that makes, too, because, the fears, different fears like that can interrupt, a person's entire life. And when you're looking at everything that takes place, too, on the level of, freedom within their life, freedom to do the things that they want to do, it's an amazing thing to be able to, be free of that, be free of that type of confinement.
Absolutely. Anytime you can get some relief or some freedom and it doesn't require a drug, I say go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what, I was just given a little indication. We have about 1 minute remaining in the broadcast. So I guess, this entire hour went by. I didn't realize how quickly it went by. But I really want to thank you for coming on today and for, sharing the information that you have. And I really think that it brings something to be exciting for people to be able to explore, as something that can really help them with all of these transformations in their lives.
Well, Debbie, it's my pleasure to bring power and relief and hope to everyone who wants it.
Well, thanks so much. And we'll go ahead and we'll conclude the broadcast. And Steve, again, thank you for coming on. And I do want to thank everybody who has participated in the chat room, as well as those who have hung with us on the call line. You're welcome to call in again and listen into our next broadcast. Also, too, if you've listened to this show and you want to pass it around and share the information to your friends and family, definitely do so. Each show becomes archived, and then you can embed it as a widget into emails, blogs, bulletins, different types of banners, etc. So pass it around, pass the information around to everyone best you can. And so I do want to say thanks again to everyone. This has been another edition of MetaVisionaries Global Live Radio. I'm your host, Debbie Edwards, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Debbie Edwards, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Debbie Edwards, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Debbie Edwards, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.